Hey, welcome back everyone. So today I wanted to talk about a Q&A session that actually was written down from one of Neville Goddard's lectures back in his days. And they basically will explain to us how to overcome race belief, which in my opinion can also be simply described as mass consciousness, which in and of its own we already posted a video about, but it's very useful to always consider the influence overall programming has on our quality of our lives, because we're all raised in a certain way, and usually throughout the world, for most countries, society operates in a very similar manner, where you're just thrown into the school system pretty much. It's like in most cases you're just demanded to go to school, although there are exceptions. There are ways to apparently, decide as a parent that you don't want your children to go through the typical school system. Apparently, I have no experience with that. I had to go to school like everybody else. I don't even know anyone personally that was somehow able to skip school altogether. But you see, that's the point. We all go through a similar system pretty much, where we're taught to get a good degree, and then get a job, and hopefully you'll have a good income. And the interesting part is that income you'll have until the moment you retire, basically. And then when you retire, hopefully you've saved up enough money to, live comfortably until the day you pass away. So it was always kind of strange to me from a very early age on in life. I already knew, I don't really want to necessarily be stuck in that kind of cycle. To me, it seemed pretty much like a prison of some kind that we all operate from, but yeah, to each their own. Some people are, of course, totally happy and fine with this, but I know in my case I wasn't really happy about it, and there's still a certain percentage of people that would probably agree, but they don't really know how to then get out of that, out of those race beliefs and that whole mass consciousness system. So that's what we're going to go over today. So here on the screen I'll have this picture that is about the question and also contains Neville's answer to the question, and let's see what it actually has to teach us. So the person asked him, as a metaphysical student, I have been taught to believe that race beliefs and universal assumptions affect me. Do you mean that only to the degree I give these universal beliefs power over me am I influenced by them? You see, this question is already, it's pretty typical of someone that realizes there is more in life, but then they're confronted with the fact that their minds, or as Bob Proctor would say, their paradigm, their whole habitual way of living, pretty much on a subconscious level, is trained, to not really take charge, to start becoming an individual expression of life, that a person that really thinks and acts for themselves regardless of what everybody else is doing. And it's based on you sensing within you this inspiration, this compulsion, this desire to do something great with your life in your own unique way. And that desire is actually God-given. It's just simply meant for you to do your own role and part in this bigger scheme of life itself. So we have to get away from race beliefs for sure, like those universal assumptions, as he said as well. Just because the masses believe something is true, or believe something needs to be in a certain way, doesn't actually mean that it is 100% true necessarily. Of course, it's the same with us as well, that just because we believe something doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% accurate and true. But the point being is, if we base our belief system only on what, the group, the society as a whole would agree on, then, in the case of achieving dreams, the problem is society as a whole, they don't think about achieving dreams. They're just thinking of fitting in and not disturbing the crowd too much by standing out. They're afraid of what others think. They just want to have a job and be left alone. And meanwhile, in their hearts, many people are like, I wish I could achieve more, but I guess I can't. I need to work this day job instead, which is all part of that belief system. And even worse, some people, they go as far as to simply be jealous of people that are richer or more successful than them, and then they like to gossip and mock these people in secret with their friends. I mean, all kinds of stupid, silly little things happen. So Neville said the following in response to this student's question. He said that it is only your individual viewpoint, as your world is forever bearing witness to your present concept of self. If someone offends you, change your concept of self. That is the only way others change. Tonight's paper may be read by any 6 people in this room, and no 2 will interpret the same story in the same way. One will be elated, the other depressed, another indifferent, and so on. Yet it is the same story. Universal assumptions, race beliefs, call them what you will, they are not important to you. What is important is your concept, not of another, but of yourself. For the concept you hold of yourself determines the concept you hold of others. Leave others alone. What are they to you? Follow your own desires. You see that? And Neville said it there. Follow your own desires. It's so hard for the average person to actually do this. Maybe it's still a little bit tricky for you to fully do this, because what happens here is that it's true, we have these desires, but because of the race beliefs, the way we're trained and raised in life, generally speaking, we like to look around us and measure based on what other people achieve and whether we can achieve something as well. So if you don't know anybody that's achieved their own dreams and you have this big dream, then the tendency is to assume, well, you see, since most people don't achieve their dreams, probably not going to be possible for me as well. That's what happens. But Neville here clearly says that you should learn to follow your own desires. So that means you learn to think for yourself, you learn to decide on what it is that you want, regardless of what the masses would think of that. Of course, it would be nice if we keep one rule in mind, which is that will our desires and goals actually physically or even perhaps mentally bring harm to others? Like, will you cause people to only think about how terrible life is, for example, or will you actually cause physical harm to people because of what you're doing? So if that's the case, well, it would be nice for you not to pursue that goal, but at the same time, we can't deny some people have some twisted desires, all right, and it might disturb a lot of stuff here on Earth. It's just the way it is. So therefore, just try and be nice about this, but still, it remains important to follow your own desires so that you can break free from society at large. And with this, we mean you no longer have to live your life according to how they are living their lives. You learn to live your life according to what your imagination inspires you to do, and then you will always find that you sooner or later end up serving humanity with what you're doing anyway. It's kind of like with me and others out there as well. At first, I remember 14 years ago, well, late 2000s, in 2008 for example, I would never have imagined that I would end up posting YouTube videos about consciousness and stuff like this. Because at the time, it also was very uncommon. Maybe some people were doing it already, of course, but it really, back then, I also was mostly just thinking along the lines of how society taught me to think. But now I realize I can think according to what my imagination dictates. So I can have a dream and then start thinking from the dream, as Neville would say. This is all part of breaking free from those race beliefs and universal assumptions. So Neville went on to say that the law is always in operation. Always. Your consciousness is the rock upon which all structures rest. Watch what you are aware of. You need not concern yourself with others because you are sustained by the absoluteness of this law. No man comes to you of his own accord, be he good, bad, or indifferent. He did not choose you, you chose him. He was drawn to you because of what you are. You cannot destroy the state another represents through force. Rather, leave him alone. What is he to you? Rise to a higher level of consciousness and you will find a new world awaiting you. And as you sanctify yourself, others are sanctified. Now this is absolutely beautiful, because this whole idea of a law, well, again, masses don't know about that. They have a hard time even understanding it, and even for me, of course, it is a very deep subject with a lot to it that we probably can never fully comprehend in its entirety at all as a temporary little human being, let's be honest. But these spiritual laws that we're talking about are exactly as he actually says that it would work. He actually went as far to say that no man comes to you of his own accord, be it good, bad, or indifferent. Now that's a pretty shocking thing to consider at first, because there's a lot of people out there that have the victim mentality. So yes, we could agree bad things are happening to you consistently, it seems, but ultimately, sooner or later, we're also going to have to well, admit what is the common denominator in these bad situations in your life. That is they themselves as well. So perhaps they are deciding to date or hang out with the wrong kind of people, and they try to do it over and over again, and it's like, well, it's not going to bring you any good results now anymore. So you should change yourself. You should change your perception of self. Basically, if you hang out, let's say with well, this is gonna perhaps sound a little weird, but I hope it still makes the point clear. If you hang out with drug addicts, for example, and then you want to be sober, but then every time you hang out with your drug addicted friends, well, you start using again, and you keep doing that years and years in a row, and then you complain, oh, my life is so bad every time I end up with these drug users. It's like, no, wait a minute. If you change your concept of self into one of a sober person, two things are going to happen. First of all, you learn to develop the power to not need drugs any longer. So even if others do it, well, that's good. But secondly, you're probably also going to realize I want to surround myself with sober people more and more instead of drug addicted people, and therefore you grow away. And so these people, they come to you. No man comes to you of his own accord. So these people that then come into your life, it's because of your attitude towards life. And that's the amazing part. Once you grasp that, you can actually start experimenting with this consciously and see how things will improve for the better in your life. Now, he went on to say in that final paragraph that we cannot destroy another through force. Sadly, that is indeed what happens all the time in this world. That's also where all these wars and other conflicts actually come from. It's trying to change things, people, countries by force. And yeah, it can temporarily or even perhaps permanently change stuff around for a country. But at what cost? It's such destruction and chaos potential that arises from this attitude. So humanity seems to be far away from a universal consciousness and attitude where we don't perhaps need force in order to cause things to change, but rather through cooperation and actually communication, as brothers and sisters pretty much learn to overcome problems. But yeah, as he said in the final line, this is the most important part there for us to understand. Even though all this conflict stuff happens in the world, it doesn't necessarily have to permanently affect us as an individual. Stuff could happen to us, okay, that's fine, but we have to understand the final line. He said, rise to a higher level of consciousness and you will find a new world awaiting you. You see, this is a big statement. People might think, a new world, does he mean that you're going to fly up to the sky to another planet, another galaxy or something? No, we're talking about your consciousness right now, everybody's consciousness right now experiences this reality as if they're in their own little world. That's really true, because he said earlier that nobody sees and interprets the things the same way as the other person. Of course, it might be similar, but ultimately we all have a unique almost perception of what things mean to us. So if we're going to rise to a higher level of consciousness, it simply means to develop this new concept of self within you, one that is better and greater than the concept that you have held of yourself up until now, which simply means that you're going to build a bigger, better vision and purpose in your consciousness for how you would like to live, and then you start to rise towards that kind of lifestyle. And yes, you will find yourself in a new world, so to speak, where simply everything around you has changed around, and hopefully for the better. So if you're poor right now and struggling and deeply in debt, well, once you rise in consciousness to a state of wealth, or at least to a state where you can pay off those debts, then suddenly you're no longer in a world full of debts, but in a world full of plentiness. That would be ideal, but at least a world where there is no debt, right? So you can at least be more comfortable, etc. What happens to most people, this is the problem, is that we're both letting the race beliefs and universal assumptions affect us, but most of all we're just letting the circumstances control our minds. And if you let circumstances control your mind, you can never rise to a higher level of consciousness, because rising to a higher level implies going beyond where you are now, and this can only be done through using your imagination, through using your consciousness for yourself, and thinking and dreaming and acting on your purpose, on what's important to you. This is what it's about, man. If you understand this, then life can become a wonderful journey. But as long as you don't understand it and are stuck in mass consciousness, well then, either hope that you were raised in a country where everybody is already well aware of this information and actually helping each other to work with this. Because if that's not the case, what's going to happen is, if by simple observation, is that most people live through their senses only, let circumstance control their mind, gossip about how things are and how bad other people are, only doing that instead of talking about, I have this great dream, I have this vision in my mind, this is really what I would like to achieve, man. And then the other person say, yeah, that's great, that sounds like a cool goal, you should go for that. Meanwhile, I have this dream and I'm going for that. And therefore, as we both go for our goals, we can actually also support each other along the way by, when things get perhaps a little tough or somebody starts doubting, to be like, hey man, we're gonna do this. We know this power in our minds. We're gonna make it happen. That's the beautiful part. So if you've been struggling, feeling stuck within a pattern that you do not like, well then you just have to understand pretty much what Neville has said here. It's not a lot of text. It's not a big answer that he gave in reality. You could have gone on and on like I am, going further into it, but ultimately the core was in that one line: follow your own desires. See, have you been doing that? If you do it, you'll automatically start breaking free, most likely, from many of the raised beliefs that you were raised with. And then, as we said, at least try and be nice about this. Try and be sure that your desires don't bring harm and hurt other people while you're at it. Of course, we will probably hurt some people along the way, because some people might be afraid of losing us if we go for our dreams, that you suddenly become so rich, well, successful that you forget about them. Well, those are just little ego worries that people can have, and and you still should go, because if what you're doing makes you unhappy but somebody else happy, it's still not right. I mean, that's honestly how I look at it. If other people around me are happy because of what I'm doing, but I would be unhappy, then I have no other choice but to stop doing what I'm doing, even though it made others happy. Because if I'm unhappy, I mean, life is going to be terrible. Come on, let's be honest. So I hope I'm just assuming that you'll have nice desires as well that are going to be fun and interesting to share with humanity, and that's what you want to do. Learn to focus on your own desire every single day, even if you're currently involved in perhaps a normal job that you do not like or that you don't want to be stuck in forever. Well, then use your spare time, and even during your work, you could, during lunch breaks, etc., take the time to actually follow your own desires, to focus at least on them, so you know what you could be doing in your free time once you're not at your job. Because most people, when they have a lunch break at work, what they're going to do is still gossip about stuff that's happening in the world all over again. Like, people are not really thinking for themselves, and they're only going along with these universal assumptions and talk about that and then complaining or feel sad or bad together about how things are. It's a spiral that brings us nowhere ultimately. Now, you can talk and analyze and observe what's going bad in the world, that's fine, but don't let it affect you, don't let it drag you down. You make sure you can keep focusing on your dreams. That's the beauty of this whole band. Let's make it happen. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.